It happened in the middle of the night, no warning, no alarm. In a quiet corner of Ouagadougou, while the world slept, masked men stormed the private residence of Captain Ibrahim Traoré. No palace, no guards, just one light still on, and within minutes it was gone. No shots fired, no cries for help, just silence. And the president missing. Was it a coup, an abduction, or something far more calculated? What unfolded next would shake Africa and leave Western media stunned. If you believe true power doesn't always wear a uniform like this video, subscribe. Because what you're about to witness changes everything. If you believe that even a small nation can stand tall against global giants. If you believe Africa deserves to write its own story, in its own voice, on its own terms. And if you've ever seen the fire burning in Captain Ibrahim Traoré's eyes and felt it spark something deep within you, then this story isn't just his, it's yours too. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel, not just to support, but to stand together. Because what began as a whisper has now become a silent storm, and it's only just beginning. And so what began as a night of panic ended as a masterclass in purpose. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the man so many believed had been captured or killed, had never left the people. In fact, he had never been closer. He didn't return with tanks or threats, he returned with a microphone, a message and a movement. What Burkina Faso witnessed that day was more than a political act. It was a new language of leadership, one not built on fear, but on imagination, on vision, on shared sacrifice. Captain Ibrahim Traoré had taken the very tool used to silence many African voices, media manipulation, fear-based headlines, rumor, and turned it into his loudest weapon, not with violence, but with story. His so-called disappearance became a mirror reflecting the truth. Africa is no longer waiting for approval. It's acting, it's dreaming out loud. And that dream no longer rests in the hands of Western diplomats or foreign banks. It rests in the hands of farmers in Bobo Dioulasso, in students marching through Niamey, in musicians in Lagos, and in women selling produce in Kumasi. Across the continent, the impact was immediate. In cafes and classrooms, people spoke of unity. In markets, old men quoted Traoré's speech. And online, something strange began to happen. People didn't just share the video, they shared the feeling. That feeling of reclaiming something stolen long ago, ownership of destiny. For decades, Africa was portrayed as reactive, responding to crises, appealing for aid, surviving colonial residue. But Traoré's performance flipped the narrative. He made Africa proactive again. By refusing to play the game on their terms, he rewrote the rules. He reminded the world, and more importantly, reminded Africans that symbolism matters. That leadership isn't about control, it's about connection, about courage, about knowing when to vanish and when to return, not for applause, but for impact. And in doing so, Captain Ibrahim Traoré became something more than a president. He became a conductor, not of orchestras, but of emotion, of momentum, of meaning. As the sun set over Ouagadougou that evening, the stage lights faded. The crowd slowly dispersed, but something had shifted. It was quiet again, yes, but not the fearful silence of uncertainty. It was the heavy silence that follows awakening. And if you listened closely, you could almost hear it. The whisper of a continent standing taller, breathing deeper, believing louder. So if you believe that even a small nation can stand firm before global giants, if you believe Africa deserves to write its own story in its own voice, if you saw the fire in Captain Ibrahim Traoré's eyes and felt it burn inside your chest, then this story belongs to you too. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel, not just to support, but to stand together. Because what began as a whisper has now become a silent storm, and it's only just begun. The story of Captain Ibrahim Traoré is more than a political event or a moment of surprise. It is a reflection of leadership, redefined power, reclaimed and narrative shifted. What unfolded in the heart of Ouagadougou was not merely a response to global structures, but a symbolic declaration that the future of Africa must no longer be dictated by fear, dependency, or external approval. It must be authored from within. One of the most profound lessons lies in the concept of presence without force. Throughout modern history, leaders have relied on military displays, political speeches, or international forums to project power. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré reversed this expectation. He disappeared not to hide, but to prove that leadership is not anchored in visibility but in trust. The people believed in him even when the world insisted he was gone. That is a rare kind of authority, the kind rooted in emotional connection, not physical dominance. Moreover, the carefully orchestrated event at Revolution Square revealed a second truth: the battle for Africa is no longer being fought solely on the battlefield, but in the realm of meaning. Instead of responding to aggression with retaliation, Traoré responded with symbolism. Instead of issuing threats, he delivered inspiration. The live-stream concert was not simply entertainment. It was a reappropriation of media space, a rejection of Western narrative control, and a redefinition of what resistance can look like. In a continent long dominated by guns and generals, Traoré offered a microphone, a message, and a new map. Another powerful lesson arises from the reaction of the people. In the absence of answers, Burkina Faso did not descend into chaos. There was fear, yes, but also unity. Protesters did not loot or burn. Students did not riot. They gathered, waited, and wept. That emotional restraint, that collective discipline, is evidence of something deeper: the emotional maturity of a nation ready to think beyond reaction and towards renewal. It shows that African societies are no longer passive recipients of top-down governance. They are actively engaged, aware, and capable of responding to uncertainty with purpose. Equally instructive is the role of narrative itself. In an age of disinformation, rumors, and geopolitical manipulation, this story challenges us to ask, who controls the story of Africa? For years, the continent's image has been shaped by headlines produced in Paris, London, or Washington. But Traoré disrupted that order. He used silence as a signal. He turned rumor into tension, and he timed his reappearance not for diplomatic effect, but for emotional crescendo. The audience was not foreign embassies, it was the people of Africa. And in doing so, he taught a vital lesson: to reclaim our story, we must first control its rhythm. Perhaps the most lasting lesson is the idea that impact does not require approval. Captain Ibrahim Traoré did not wait for endorsement. He did not ask for permission. He acted. And in acting, he reminded millions that agency begins with choice. No matter how small a country may appear on a map, its voice can carry global weight if it speaks with clarity, purpose, and conviction. This lesson becomes even more important when viewed in the broader context of African history. For too long, post-colonial states have wrestled with the burden of inherited systems, external debts, and conditional aid. But Traoré's gesture broke that pattern. By redirecting concert proceeds into agriculture, education, and renewable energy, he demonstrated that sovereignty is not only political, it is economic, social, and spiritual. It is the ability to choose one's priorities, to direct one's resources, and to define one's value, not by what is borrowed but by what is built. The presence of BURNA Boy, a cultural figure rather than a political one, underscores another theme: the merging of art and activism. The use of music, spectacle, and emotion speaks to a generation that consumes through experience rather than ideology. Traoré's move speaks to this emerging political aesthetic, where leaders must not only govern but inspire, not only declare but perform. This is not manipulation. It is a recognition that today's struggles are fought not only in parliament or battlefield, but in imagination. And perhaps that is the most important lesson of all: the war for Africa's future is a war of imagination, not against tanks or treaties, but against the belief that we are too small, too weak, or too late. Captain Ibrahim Traoré shattered that illusion. He showed what is possible when a leader is not afraid to act outside the script, to embrace symbolism, and to trust the intelligence of his people. This story is not just a moment in Burkinabe history. It is a message to every African nation to think creatively, to lead courageously, and to speak proudly. It reminds us that Africa's greatest strength is not in its gold or oil or land. It is in its people's belief that something greater is still possible. That belief, once awakened, cannot be silenced by borders, bullets, or broadcasts. In the end, Captain Ibrahim Traoré didn't just escape an attempted coup. He staged a cultural intervention, and in doing so, he left behind not just a story but a lesson, that when a leader trusts his people and a people believe in their leader, even whispers can shake the world. The response to Captain Ibrahim Traoré's unexpected return and symbolic performance was nothing short of seismic. Across Africa and beyond, viewers flooded comment sections, group chats, forums, and WhatsApp threads with emotion, reflection, and questions. What they had witnessed was not just a live stream, it felt like a continental moment, a shared pulse, a long overdue awakening. Many viewers expressed raw disbelief at first. Some had followed the headlines for hours, convinced their leader had been taken, possibly killed. When the video surfaced and showed him not only alive, but standing beside Burna Boy in front of thousands, the emotional contrast was overwhelming. One user wrote, "I was crying this morning. Now I'm crying again, but this time out of pride." Others focused on the symbolism. "This wasn't a concert," someone commented, "it was a ceremony." Another post said, "Captain Ibrahim Traoré just rewrote the definition of power. He didn't need tanks, he needed timing." The emotional gravity of the moment seemed to replace the usual cynicism of online discourse with something rare hope. Young Africans in particular saw themselves reflected in the story. Many spoke of how they had grown up being told to wait for permission, for support, for leadership, for change. Traoré's defiance of that timeline struck a chord. "He's not leading like a president," one viewer observed. "He's leading like someone who understands what we've all been feeling and isn't afraid to act on it." In the diaspora, the story resonated as well. From Brixton to Brooklyn, from Lyon to Lagos, African communities abroad responded with awe. "I haven't felt this proud to be African in years," a woman wrote on Twitter. "The West doesn't know how to process what just happened, but we do. We feel it in our bones." Not all reactions were celebratory. Some viewers raised questions about the use of spectacle in politics. "It was brilliant," one critic admitted, "but is this sustainable? Will it translate into policies, reforms, real development?" Others voiced concern about the line between symbolism and substance. Yet even among skeptics, there was admiration for the boldness of the act and the emotional intelligence behind it. A wave of Pan-African sentiment surged across comment sections. Users began tagging friends from other countries, posting flags side by side, and quoting Traoré's lines. "We are not fighting with bullets anymore," became a viral caption. Some began calling for a continental tour. "Imagine if he did this in Bamako, Accra, Nairobi, we'd fill the streets." For artists, poets, and musicians, the moment was inspiration. Many said they had never seen art politics and people's emotion blend so seamlessly. One musician posted, "What Captain Ibrahim Traoré just did isn't just historic, it's spiritual. He made us feel again." A poet shared a short verse, "Not vanished, not silent, not broken. He returned with rhythm and left the world wide open." Parents said they showed the video to their children. Teachers brought it into the classroom. In Burkina Faso, entire neighborhoods replayed the moment again and again. "We stood up when he came on stage," one man wrote, "like it was a national anthem." Several comments compared Traoré's act to other global political moments. This was Africa's version of Kennedy in Berlin, or Mandela in Soweto, someone claimed. Only this time the weapon was art, and the army was us. Some reactions turned personal. "I'm from a small village. We don't have running water," wrote one teenager. "But today I feel like my country matters." Another said, "My father didn't believe it at first. He thought it was edited. Then he cried." Western audiences, though fewer in number, also joined the conversation. Some expressed confusion. "What just happened in Burkina Faso?" one American user asked. "I feel like I missed the beginning of a revolution." Others praised the creativity, even if they didn't fully grasp the context. Whatever this is, one viewer posted, "It's genius. Your president is a showman and a statesman." Amidst the noise, one theme cut through clearly. This wasn't just about Traore. It was about the idea of a leader who understands his people deeply, emotionally, culturally, spiritually. A leader who doesn't just govern, but represents. In a world filled with technocrats, bureaucrats, and distant elites, many saw in Traore a different kind of figure. One who listens first, one who dares. And yet, for all the admiration, there was also a collective sense of responsibility. He lit the match, a commenter warned, but it's up to us to keep the fire going. People began talking about local initiatives, starting community gardens, supporting clean energy projects, donating to education funds. "We can't just clap," someone wrote. "We have to carry this." Ultimately, the comments were not just reactions. They became a movement of their own, a continuation of the message, a silent storm echoing across screens and souls alike. Because when Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood on that stage, he wasn't just addressing a crowd, he was inviting a continent to rise. The story of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's sudden disappearance and even more dramatic return did more than capture attention. It sparked a wave of emotional, political, and cultural commentary across the continent and far beyond. For many, it was not merely a news event, but a collective moment of awakening. What began as silence ended in a thunderclap of voices. Online, in cafes, classrooms, and living rooms, the reactions poured in, and what they revealed was the power of narrative to move a people. Viewers were stunned. In a digital age where most surprises feel manufactured, this felt different. Raw. Real. Millions had spent the previous night in fear, imagining the worst. Some believed Traoré had been assassinated. Others suspected a military coup. When the live stream appeared and he emerged alive, smiling, standing next to BURNA boy, many described the moment as surreal. "I had tears in my eyes," one viewer commented. "I thought we lost him. And then there he was, as if to say, 'I never left you.'" Social media lit up with emotional outbursts. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram overflowed with comments ranging from disbelief to pride. Hashtags like Nox, Traore returns, Silent Storm, and Sorry Africa Speaks trended across multiple countries. People didn't just watch the video, they felt it, and they made it their own. A powerful current among the reactions was a sense of ownership. Viewers didn't speak of Traoré as a distant politician, but as a symbol of something deeply personal. "He speaks like someone who understands where we come from," a young woman from Mali wrote. "He didn't need a throne. He stood in the crowd and we saw ourselves in him." Many compared the spectacle to revolutionary acts of the past, but with a twist. "This wasn't Che Guevara with a rifle," one post read. "This was something more dangerous, an idea made visible." Some described it as Africa's first true media revolution, where the camera, not the gun, led the charge. Others said it was performance art with a political backbone. He made the world wait. Then he flipped the stage. That's not just theater, that's strategy. The symbolism of a missing president returning on a concert stage wasn't lost on anyone. He didn't return to a press conference or a military parade, one viewer wrote. He returned to music. That says everything. Many connected Burna Boy's presence to a wider movement, where art, culture, and politics merge to tell new stories of sovereignty, pride, and resistance. Young Africans in particular responded with intensity. Some said they felt seen for the first time. Others called it the most African thing ever, meaning a defiant mix of grace, spectacle, and raw truth. One teenager from Côte d'Ivoire posted, "They tell us to stay quiet. He taught us that silence can be a weapon. But when the time is right, you speak, and the world listens." There were also moments of introspection. People began asking bigger questions. What does leadership really mean? Who defines the future of Africa? Can culture replace weapons? The comments shifted from emotional outbursts to deeper reflections. This wasn't just a moment, one writer noted. It was a model, a blueprint, a mirror. Several said they watched the video more than once, not just for the message, but to understand its deeper layers. Even in the diaspora, the event reverberated. African communities in London, Toronto, and New York described staying up all night to follow the live stream. "We watched from our phones," one man said, "and it felt like home called us back." There was pride, yes, but also a renewed sense of responsibility. He reminded us that we don't just have history, we have potential. Artists and activists were especially vocal. Poets wrote lines inspired by Traore's words. Musicians sampled the livestream audio into new songs. Visual artists designed posters, murals, and digital covers within hours. "We've waited decades for a leader who doesn't just speak, but performs meaning," a rapper from Lagos tweeted. "This isn't politics. This is movement building." But not all commentary was blindly celebratory. Some expressed skepticism about the sustainability of such symbolic gestures. "It was brilliant," a university lecturer wrote. "But now, what will it lead to change on the ground?" Others questioned the blurred line between leadership and spectacle. "We've had charismatic leaders before," one commenter warned. "Symbolism fades. Institutions matter." Yet even among critics, there was admiration for the precision and emotional impact of the event. One political analyst from Kenya posted, "You don't have to agree with his methods to respect the execution. It was tactically flawless. It disrupted the entire narrative structure." There was also recognition of a generational shift. Older viewers expressed surprise and in some cases envy at the energy surrounding Traore. "In my day, revolution meant guns and exile," one elder wrote. "Today it means lighting up a stage. I'm not sure which is more powerful." The reactions weren't confined to political circles. School teachers began showing the clip in civic education classes. Community radio stations aired the speech. Local councils hosted debates about the meaning of sovereignty and self-determination. In this way, the performance traveled beyond the screen, it entered the cultural bloodstream. Perhaps the most unexpected outcome was the sense of collective authorship. People didn't just cheer for Traore, they began finishing his sentences. "Taking the torch. He started the rhythm," one viewer said. "Now it's up to us to carry the beat." Some began grassroots fundraising for rural schools. Others proposed hosting similar public gatherings to channel local energy. It was as if his performance had opened a space and people rushed in to fill it. One of the most liked comments said it best. "He didn't ask us to follow him. He asked us to wake up. And now we can't go back to sleep." In a world that often treats African nations as reactive, divided, and voiceless, this story reversed the lens. It portrayed a people capable of nuanced creativity and unity. It reminded a generation that power is not always seized. It can also be staged, shaped, and shared. And so, as the video spread and the silence faded, what remained was a story, not just of a man who vanished, but of a people who found their voice. African communities in London, Toronto, and New York described staying up all night to follow the live stream. "We watched from our phones," one man said, "and it felt like home called us back." There was pride, yes, but also a renewed sense of responsibility. He reminded us that we don't just have history, we have potential. Artists and activists were especially vocal. Poets wrote lines inspired by Traore's words. Musicians sampled the livestream audio into new songs. Visual artists designed posters, murals, and digital covers within hours. "We've waited decades for a leader who doesn't just speak, but performs meaning," a rapper from Lagos tweeted. "This isn't politics. This is movement building." But not all commentary was blindly celebratory. Some expressed skepticism about the sustainability of such symbolic gestures. "It was brilliant," a university lecturer wrote. "But now, what will it lead to change on the ground?" Others questioned the blurred line between leadership and spectacle. "We've had charismatic leaders before," one commenter warned. "Symbolism fades. Institutions matter." Yet even among critics, there was admiration for the precision and emotional impact of the event. One political analyst from Kenya posted, "You don't have to agree with his methods to respect the execution. It was tactically flawless. It disrupted the entire narrative structure." There was also recognition of a generational shift. Older viewers expressed surprise and in some cases envy at the energy surrounding Traore. In my day, revolution meant guns and exile, one elder wrote. Today it means lighting up a stage. I'm not sure which is more powerful. The reactions weren't confined to political circles. School teachers began showing the clip in civic education classes. Community radio stations aired the speech. Local councils hosted debates about the meaning of sovereignty and self-determination. In this way, the performance traveled beyond the screen, it entered the cultural bloodstream. Perhaps the most unexpected outcome was the sense of collective authorship. People didn't just cheer for Traore, they began finishing his sentences. Taking the torch, he started the rhythm, one viewer said. Now it's up to us to carry the beat. Some began grassroots fundraising for rural schools. Others proposed hosting similar public gatherings to channel local energy. It was as if his performance had opened a space and people rushed in to fill it. One of the most liked comments said it best. He didn't ask us to follow him. He asked us to wake up. And now we can't go back to sleep. In a world that often treats African nations as reactive, divided, and voiceless, this story reversed the lens. It portrayed a people capable of nuanced creativity and unity. It reminded a generation that power is not always seized. It can also be staged, shaped, and shared. And so, as the video spread and the silence faded, what remained was a story, not just of a man who vanished, but of a people who found their voice.